and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. We almost have a full screen today. We have Amy and Marla and Craig and Dennis and Carrie and Lou and Ted. Good to have everyone today. Today we'll be talking about the 78th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Announcements. Lots of good recovery resources at buddyc.org. We have a nightly 9 p.m. Eastern AA meeting. You can get there at zoomaameetings.com. There's a resources link there at buddyc.org that has all of that information. Lots of good things there that you could put to use. And the majority of the books that we use here, I have on the homepage there. So if you want to locate some of these books, they should be on the homepage. 78th verse. What I'm going to do, we're just going to read some different translations of this verse and just discuss it and see what it means to us, how it speaks to our experience, whether we're in recovery or not, does not really matter. How does it speak to us and apply to our life? That's what we're really interested in. Amy, why don't you read the Stephen Mitchell for me, please?
Yep. This is Stephen Mitchell's translation of the 78th verse. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. Therefore, the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter his heart because he has given up helping. He is people's greatest help. True words seem paradoxical.
He has given up helping. Because he's giving up helping, because he has given up helping, he is people's greatest help. Okay. Marla, could you read Wayne Dyer, please?
Yeah. Nothing in the world is softer and weaker than water. But for attacking the hard, the unyielding, nothing can surpass it. There is nothing like it. The weak overcomes the strong. The soft surpasses the hard. In all the world, there is no one who does not know this. But no one can master the practice. Therefore, the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter his heart. Because he has given up helping, he is people's greatest help. True words appear paradoxical.
Yes.
Because he has given up helping, he is people's greatest help.
Ted, would you read does Benjamin Hoff have a translation of that you could read for us?
Sure. The soft and the hard responsibility. Under heaven, nothing is softer and weaker than water. Yet for attacking the hard and strong, nothing is capable of excelling it. There is nothing that can take its place. The weak wins over the strong, the soft wins over the hard. Under heaven, no one does not know that, but no one is capable of applying it. A wise man has said, one who can shoulder responsibility for the dirt and dishonor of the state can be called Lord of the land. One who can shoulder responsibility for the ill fortune of the nation can be called all under heaven's ruler. Proper words can seem contrary.
Anyone else have thank you, Ted. Anyone else have a translation they would like to read? Comments?
Wait, can I read Johnson Stars?
Sure.
Nothing in this world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for attacking the hard and strong, none can triumph so easily. It is weak, yet none can equal it. It is soft, yet none can damage it. It is yielding, yet none can wear it away. Everyone knows that the soft overcomes the hard, and the yielding triumphs over the rigid. Why then so little faith? Why can no one practice it? So the sages say, fulfill even the lowest position, love even the weakest creature. Then you will be called Lord of every offering, King of all below heaven.
He took a little different position with that, didn't he?
Yeah, and it wasn't, I was kind of getting hung up on, he stopped helping people and became people's greatest help, because in recovery, I'm taught to help people.
Exactly. But you don't have the ability to within yourself to help.
Right. So when I read stars, then it was like, oh, oh, okay.
Hello, Kate. Good to have you today, ma'am.
Hello.
We're on the 78th verse of the Tao Te Ching is where we're at. I'll put the link, one of the links in the chat for you so you'll have it.
I have it actually.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I've never used this version of Zoom. So I don't know how to mute myself.
I can mute you for you. You got it? Okay. It's at the bottom there. Okay, good. If you want to chat or you have any comments, just unmute and I'll see it, and if I don't see it, raise your virtual hand and I'll call on you or interrupt us. Okay. Thank you. Amy, for me, I had to go back to thinking about water and the process that water takes, and using that as an example of my attitude toward service. Water doesn't seem to have it has no form or structure of itself. It uses what energy it has available, and it goes wherever it can. And I thought about you, Carrie. A prior time that we had looked at this, I'd wrote down to substitute love for water. So if I go through this and I substitute love for where I see water in the 78th verse, it makes a lot of sense to me. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as love. Yet for dissolving the hardened and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. When I thought about that, I said, that's true. That's true. That love is our example. Water can be our example for how to love and how to show kindness for others, and how to, how we're to behave. Really, water's an example of that for us. That he has given up helping. I think that's surrender. I'm giving up I do not have the ability to help. And I could look at recovery the same way. I don't have the ability to recover. My the attitude's the same. I have to get out of the way. I have to stop the self-effort.
But isn't it, now I'm just kind of focusing on the word paradoxical, right? And then Ron Hogan's translation, I love the ending. Sometimes the truth makes no sense.
Yeah.
So is it my version of helping is I got to fix, manage, and control, right? So that's the part I have to stop doing.
Yes.
And surrender and let go. And then only by using my experience and real life, my journey of active alcoholism into sobriety, and now my journey in sobriety, that is what helps people. Oh, program of attraction. Oh, I love watching it work itself out.
I just had an idea about this, Amy. What about, water uses gravity to go where it needs to go and all of that, right? What if the way we help is, what if we thought of our experience as being the gravity? We go to where our experience is. Does that make sense? Like our experience is what leads us to what we share and how we move and where we go. That's how water finds the lowest spot, is taken where gravity takes it. Comments? Anybody?
Well, also on its way, if it hits a big boulder, it doesn't try to push it out of the way and just goes around it, or it's there, it surrenders to it and moves on.
And if it goes around it for long enough, it'll start wearing the boulder away, right?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point too, is although water doesn't use power and control and strong effort, you can't deny that water has an impact. Water has an influence.
Exactly. Dennis?
Yeah. It reminds you in recovery when we say we cease fighting everything and everybody, right? We surrender. And I had to think twice about that. What is it? Third stanza we're talking about when we're saying we don't help anybody, so we help them all. and it's kind of you're not take control over anything anymore. And it reminded me the first time, I think it's about a decade ago in a meeting, a friend of mine, he was talking about that fighting was kind of like swimming up against the stream in the river. And you keep doing it. That was a natural thing for me. I'm like, I want to fight everything and everybody and figure it out by myself. And in the end, I'm getting fatigued. I'm getting so exhausted that I'm just letting go. And I'm finding out that I'm ending just up where I need to be. And that's pretty powerful. Then I kind of like in your version, what do you call that? It's not a version, it's interpretation of it. I actually like that you kind of are taking away the confusion a little bit, because you say in the third stanza, in the world, no one has this knowledge. Where, let me just take Wayne Dyer, where it says, therefore the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter this heart because he is given up helping. It says that we have, where is it, where we said that we have all the knowledge, but we don't know how to put it into action. That was the one I was looking for. But in your interpretation, we just go in and say we don't have this knowledge really, or we don't know how to put it to use. It's really what it is. We know that it's being more lovable is always also a way to say that you.
So the sage, the way I said it was, so the sage exerts powerlessness to meet any challenge, knowing she has unlimited strength, not her own.
Mm.
Buddy, what I would say on that, Dennis, is that it reminds me of kind of a slogan in Al-Anon, maybe the same one in AA, which is that when we take responsibility for somebody else's recovery, then we're denying them the dignity of their own desperation. And that's the opposite of being water-like, I think, where you don't take that on, you don't try to control it, and you're aware of your role. Water has its role, earthquake has its role maybe, but if you want to go with the flow and do things that are non-controlling and not immediately disruptive, then that's the way of water.
That's pretty cool. Actually, I heard a speaker once saying that I wouldn't give anybody the gift of sobriety even if I could, because I would rob them from their journey. And that kind of says it there. Pretty good.
Water seeks the lowest spot, and that's the master giving up helping within his own power. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my head around all of this. I see in Hoff's view of the Tao, says, and weaker than water, nothing is softer and weaker than water. I know that water can generate electricity. Water created the Grand Canyon. It's all a matter of time with the Grand Canyon. I think water is extremely powerful. As far as advice is concerned, I can't give advice to anybody because I'm very rarely able to give myself advice. I don't even listen to my own words. But everybody has a filter for listening to things. If someone wants to take what it is that I'm saying and put it into their situation, that's up to them. It's not up to me. All I can do is speak my own story, speak my own way of doing things. And if someone else wants to take that and make it theirs, that's up to them. It's certainly not up to me. Now, under heaven, nothing is softer and weaker than water. I don't know. I would have to go to the end of his look at the Tao and say proper words can seem contrary, because I don't believe that water is softer and weaker than anything, because it says under heaven, nothing is softer and weaker than water. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that I know I spent some time in Norway, and their waterfalls actually create the electricity that they use. They're a very electrical society, and when a waterfall is not tapped for electricity, they call it, oh, that's a useless waterfall. So I'm having a little bit of problem with number 78 in that I do believe that proper words can seem contrary, but I'm just not sure about the water part being softer and weaker.
Well, I'm thinking about that in regards, Ted, to that there's nothing more yielding than water. There's nothing that's more flexible than water. Water's not going to resist. Water's going to find a way around. And I think for me, that's the yielding part of water. Not that it's not going to change things with time, but just that it does not resist. It just goes where it can go based on, gravity and where it can. It'll go to the lowest places. And I think that's probably the idea behind that, or that's how I see that. And when I'm disturbed about something, when I'm starting to get upset, I'm not being flexible. I'm doing the opposite. Water is not my example with that. When I resist. And I think about this. If we share from our experience, let's say if I'm sharing with someone how I got sober, and this is what's unique to recovery for me that's unique to everything else. And we talked about this multiple times, but when I share with someone, I'm sharing from a point of yielding. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to push anything. All I'm doing is sharing how it worked for me. And that is a point that is a place of yielding. You're not, and there's nothing that you can fight back when someone shares their experience. It's not a matter of debate because there's nothing to prove. It's just my experience, and there's nothing to defend either. See, that's a real point of yielding. Craig?
That's where one of the versions of the steps come into it, where it says in the big book, really, we've seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed a path. I think one of the versions could be, look, if you want it, this is what I did. If you want what I have, this is how I did it. If you don't want it, then carry on. I can help you so much, but I can't do it for you. And I think Ted's absolutely spot on. I can't. Ted and Lou both said it. No, I'm not responsible for your recovery. That's your business. You have to be doing it yourself. The exact same as I had to do it, and the exact same as everybody else here is doing it. We cannot take responsibility for anybody else's. And I think that's what one of the translations was talking about as well. When the master takes on everybody else's problems, then he's not really going to get that far because he just becomes bogged down in everybody else's shit that he just can't do anything. I can help if you want it. If not, then carry on.
I tend to agree with Craig. I have a little story in that I was in a situation where I was asked my opinion of something. And unfortunately for me, I gave my opinion. And the facilitator of the meeting started to tell me where I was wrong and started to tell everybody else where I was wrong in my opinion. Well, I believe in my own opinion, I believe that nobody's opinion is right or wrong. It all depends on how someone receives it. And the way I receive my own opinions is this is what I think about something. It doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong. It's just that's my opinion on something. I believe that everyone has an opinion, and they are not like assholes. They're like hearts. Everyone has a heart, just like everyone has an opinion. Doesn't make them right or wrong. It's just that they have an opinion.
Also, if I stick to my experience rather than what I believe, like we like to do like we do in recovery, like in AA and in all the recovery meetings I'm in, including this one, talk about what our experience with something rather than what we believe about it. And if we stay out of belief and just stick with experience, that keeps us in a place of flexibility. That keeps us in a place that we don't fight. Still a place of surrender regardless. So that's good. Thank you, Ted.
So I like it when you get these old timers coming in the meetings and say, in my experience, I think you should be doing this. You should be doing it this way. Okay, thank you.
Heidi, do you have something?
Yes, I'm Heidi. I'm driving. So, for me, like I'm a healthcare provider, and when I get, like patients, I try to give my advice and my expertise to, a lot of the times that's not well received. And I feel like ever since I've kind of embraced this way of looking at things, that I have more of an empathy for other people now. Like, it makes my compassion grow, to see things from another person's point of view. I just wanted to point that out for myself. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Heidi. Anyone else? How about this line? The master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. That reminds me of not taking responsibility. If I'm in that place of flexibility, I'm not taking blame nor credit, right? If I'm, let's say I'm working with a sponsee, it's not blame nor credit. I just share my experience. And this relates so much to me with working with others.
I think that reminded me more of watching people in recovery lose someone very close to them. And without calling any specific people out, watching, especially in the last several months, watching someone close lose someone close and staying calm and staying serene and being helpful to other people, not by trying to fix, manage, control, and manipulate and tell them how they should feel, just by setting the example of it's okay not to be okay. The sorrow is there. I think anytime, and maybe it's easier for me to speak because I haven't lost someone very close to me in recovery. I only lost people before I got sober, and then I just drank more and I didn't feel the sorrow and I made it all about me. But seeing other people go through it, I'm echoing. Seeing other people go through it, then realizing, wow, it's possible. It's possible to go through it and remain serene, as it says. Stephen Mitchell's translation is where it says, therefore the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. Evil cannot enter his heart. Watching someone lose someone and not get pissed off at the doctors, not get pissed off at other people, not blaming other people, not playing the victim. I think that's what I thought about. So then I guess that from that aspect, he has given up helping. He is people's greatest help. Again, program of attraction.
So how do we find that place of being soft and yielding? That's the whole point, right? Is how do we get to that place of being like water,
you surrender to the moment. Isn't that how you do? I mean, whatever you're going through, if it's anger you're sitting with, I'm just feeling angry. That's it. I might disagree with somebody. Isn't that how you get there? Just like, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. I stumped my toe on something and it sucks. Oh, then I don't have to make a big fuss about it. It just hurts. And the same with everything else. We were talking about opinions before, and I don't know for me, it doesn't matter what we call it, but I cannot have an opinion. My experience with my opinion is that I cannot have it without being judgmental to something else. So my experience and those things, they count more than what I think of other things. That's basically what my opinion is, right? So I took it to heart when somebody in recovery once said, this old trucker, he said, well, when other people think about me, it's none of my business. Man, that was so good. But then again, I think it was actually on this podcast where we said that what I think of others is none of my business either. So a lot of these things that we find in these sacred 81 verses here it's really not for the mind, but for the heart somehow, right? When we try to put it into intellect, that's when we're trying to go into our different perceptions that creates perceptions and judgments and whatever it is. And then we can easily get lost, I think, in that kind of, then we're in deep water and we drown. So water can both be soft and it could be hard, right? When I'm in my shower, it's comfortable, it feels good. But if I jump out from a cliff, it can kill me with the hard surface, right? So it's interesting.
Kate, do you have something?
Hello, thank you. Yes, I wanted to respond to your question, and then other people said much wiser things than I was going to. To me, the passage, the bit that you were speaking about, and challenging us on, therefore the master remains serene in the midst of sorrow. And to me, looking at that and the other three translations, and I know that everybody here is much more adept in being able to look at the different meanings and the different subtleties. But to me, it really speaks about acceptance. I mean, I love that word serene. Obviously I'm thinking serenity prayer. But for the master to remain serene in the midst of sorrow, there is an acceptance. He who takes upon himself the humiliation of the people, that is acceptance. Only he who is the lowest servant of the kingdom. I mean, right there is humility and acceptance. Take on other people's problems and you can be their leader. And it's it is that paradox that is in, the passage, that somehow water that can appear so soft and yielding, but like Ted said, it makes waterfalls, it makes ice. And anybody who's seen a building that has got damp and it isn't being used, water takes over. And it's this, I don't know, to me, I guess it's my first time and I've really looked at this. I think this passage is really beautiful. This paradox of something soft being powerful, something gentle overcoming the rigid, the master, the ruler, the person who can lead is actually sort of not the least, but has that acceptance, has that humility. I mean, it actually says, he who takes upon himself the humiliation of the people. And rather than using the word humiliation, he who is humble, he who has humility. And right there is the paradox of a great leader and a great mentor. And I mean, Buddy, you were talking about, you share your experience. That is someone essentially who has, if you like, given up helping, because you're not trying to help and give opinions and so on. You just give up the helping, give up the trying, give up the ego, give up the self, and just be and share experience, and that way you're the person's greatest help. It kind of reminds me a little bit. It's not my tradition, but I know that within Christianity, there's the story of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. And, that was done by a servant. And I don't know, that it kind of made me think of that. And, the leader being the servant and acceptance.
The least, if you want to be the greatest, you've got to be the least, right?
I think that's probably right. You probably know more than me, but
no, Kate, you've got us all wrong if you think that, dear. You're more than welcome. You get the nail right on the head with acceptance.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to mute myself now. I'm learning so much. This is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a tendency to believe that everyone is perfect in the way that they are. I think perfection doesn't elude any single one of us. I'm looking at proper words can seem contrary. Someone had just mentioned the serenity prayer. If there's anything that doesn't make me feel serene, it's got to be the serenity prayer. Only because it has one part of it that says, the wisdom to know the difference. Boy, oh boy, that says a mouthful. I don't have that wisdom. That's what makes me non-serene, is knowing that I don't have the wisdom to know the difference. I try. I really try, but I just can't seem to get there. And as far as water being softer and weaker, how does one explain holy water then? Holy water supposedly is very, very, very strong. I know that shamans use and create holy water in Indonesia when they're doing the shadow puppetry. They create one of the requirements of a person who runs puppet shows is that he's shamanistic enough to create holy water. Frankly, I'm still having a little bit of a problem with this one verse or this one chapter. I think there's a lot more to water than meets the eye.
Thank you, Ted. Marla?
And so on that note is, the way I feel about water is, of course it's very flexible, but it's so very strong in its mobility. And I think the Tao is in all the previous verses asks us to have a core, asks us to have stability and to be soft around that stability. I think that's what I'm reading about. That's what I'm reading about water. And also just a little bit of like Jewish humor. The perfect matzo ball is very much like the Tao. It's got to be somewhat hard and firm on the inside and soft and mushy on the outside. And if you don't make the perfect matzo ball, you can no longer come for dinner. It's that big of a deal. But that's what it's like. That's what the Tao to me. It's like the perfect matzo ball: stable, flexible, and mobile.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you, dear. Craig?
So just a couple of things that people have touched on. Kate was talking about being a servant. And it reminded me of the parable where Jesus is talking to two of the disciples, one that wants to be in his left hand and one who wants to sit in his right hand. And Jesus says to him, look, that's fine, but you have to get rid of all your riches. If you want to be the leader, then you have to be the servant. You have to be the lowest of, not the lowest of the low, but you have to be prepared to get down there with the people and show them how to do things.
You have to stop helping.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, lead them that way. Yep. Another thing was Dennis was talking about about people's opinions. What other people think of me is none of my opinion. I think that sereneness kind of kicks in when I can put that balance of I don't care what people think about me, but in all honesty, we do. care what people think about us. There's a massive difference between caring what people think about us and what other people think about us is none of my business. I think finding that balance and thinking to myself, well, do you know what? You know, I do care about things that people think about me because it can hurt sometimes what people think. I think when I reach that balance of kind of being in between the two of them, that's when I find that serenity of just letting things go and surrendering to what other people think.
Thank you, Craig. Lou?
I was just thinking about what Ted had said and what Marla had said, and it seems to me like water is paradoxical. It's yin and yang, right? So although it takes the easy course and takes the gentle course, it's not overpowering, but it's persistent, and it seeks its own ground. So, but it does have, like I've said earlier, I think it has tremendous influence. It can drive power stations. It can have great waterfalls. It can have significant impact. It can be calming. It can it can have all these aspects to it. And so that's the paradox. It takes it surrenders in some ways. It surrenders, but at the same time, it ends up having the impact. So that's one thing. The other thing I was recalling having read something from Ram Dass recently that on opinion, and he talked about if you go to take a walk in the woods, you notice all the trees, that there's different kinds of trees. Some are big, some are small, some are bent, some are flourishing, some are struggling. And you just look at it and you say, oh, there are some trees and they're different. And there's probably some reasons why they're different. But then when you come back and you enter into involvement with humans, then we get into sometimes into the blaming and the comparison and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought that was somewhat germane to what we were talking about.
Thank you, Lou. Carrie.
Okay, so one of the things I did is I Googled the properties of water. And as we're talking here, I wasn't really going to mention these, but I see so many of what we're talking about in the scientific properties of water. So I thought I would just read a couple of these real quick and just
please,
if I'm going too long. But the first one is water is polar because it has both negative and positive charges, which makes me think of yin and yang. So it's already built into it. It's got two opposite sides in it already. It's an excellent solvent, which means it has the ability to dissolve other substances, which makes it very valuable for carrying nutrients along with it. So it's already able to feed people and give you nutrition. I thought this one was really interesting. It has a very high heat capacity, which means it takes a lot of energy to raise the temperature of water or to lower it, which makes it a great environment for things to live in, right? Because the temperature isn't changing, but it made me think of just being serene, right? It takes a lot of energy to get water, to get it hot or to get it cold. It's going to stay pretty stable. And then it also, there's a lot of them here. The last one is, I thought was interesting. It's got cohesive and adhesive properties. So the cohesive means that at the surface, it has really strong surface tension. So it holds together really strong, which allows it to hold things up like a boat or something in the ocean. So, it's natural properties to hold other people up. But also it's adhesive, which means it has the property to move. What it says is that like it can defy gravity. So like that's how a tree can get it up. It can stick to things and move up veins and up in the top of a tree, and just pretty remarkable substance that, we've been given. And I can see why they look at it so much as something that, to act like.
Thank you, Carrie. Amy, what's our big book quote today? Do you have one? I thought you might have already gotten your big book out and had us a quote ready.
Yeah, no, the only one I'm really thinking about is we've ceased fighting anyone or anything, even alcohol.
Yeah, I hated to use that one because we use it all the time.
Right. That's probably why I haven't.
How about this one on 86? We may not be able to determine which course of action to take or how to be flexible, right? We may not determine how to be flexible. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We accept, right? We relax and take it easy. Here we don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. What used to be the hunt or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. We find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. I think that's how we find that place of serenity in the midst of sorrow. I mean, Kate hit it square on the head. Thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Wow, that is so powerful. And not even for the most extreme sorrows, even for the little sorrows that we have in life. Because for me, I'll pull out the big tools when it's the big things, but it's the little things I'll let slip by and, still my acceptance. Those little sorrows are the things that I'll tolerate sometimes. When I've got to apply, if I want to be serene, I want to be at peace, I've got to apply these principles to those little things too. But the two I keep coming back to, Amy, your situation last week that you were talking about, have you found some peace about it yet? Not yet. Are you still working on it? You were talking about are you still there?
Yeah.
We were talking about that. Thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. And I wouldn't change the person, place, or thing, even if I could. And you said you weren't quite to the point yet to where you could say that. Have you found something about that?
Funny thing that you ask about that, buddy. Because I ceased fighting. See, what happened was yesterday, I just made a decision. Right? I just freaking made a decision to let it go. And all of a sudden, I'm laughing because this shit works. And when I least expect it, right? Not on my time. Absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And it is definitely when I don't think it will. So all of a sudden I had probably the most sincere, softest, and most yielding conversation I've ever had with this person in the 2+ years we've been working together. And it was revealed more will be revealed when your own house is in order. So all of a sudden, after that conversation yesterday, I happened to have worked in the office yesterday and I was on my way home and the drive took longer than usual. So I had more time to not get pissed off at traffic, but to reflect on the conversation. And all of a sudden I heard this voice, because the way my God speaks to me is the way that Ron Hogan does the Tao, right? So, Amy, would it be some shit if the person you thought was your biggest enemy out to get you turns out to be your biggest ally and your biggest advocate? And I was like, so buddy, to answer your question, yes, only within the last 24 hours have I.
Everybody can teach us something. We can learn something from everybody.
Well, the truth is paradoxical. Like everyone that looked at all the translators talked about, Hogan said sometimes truth makes no sense, and I think truth always makes no sense. I mean, look at the paradox, the AA paradoxes. We surrender to win. That is yielding. We give away to keep. We suffer to get well. We die to live. All of that is how I become flexible. To accept, I just have to surrender and let go. I have to. If I don't surrender and let go, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's good. And it really is. It's all acceptance. Ultimately, that's how do I become flexible and stop the fight? I have to accept. I have to. Doesn't mean that I approve. Acceptance does not mean approval. It does. I can accept a situation and not approve it. Okay. Acceptance for me means I accept things as they are right now. I cannot like it and still accept it. I used to think it meant I had to approve something. It doesn't mean that at all. It does not. But I have to accept it as it is and not have this perception that it's different or I'm sitting there trying to change it in the moment. Lou.
Yeah, that talk about paradoxical reminds me of the paradoxical commandments. Has anybody seen those? It comes from a book by Kent Keith, and Mother Teresa had it on her wall, and people had misattributed it to her. But it says things like, "People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway." So there's a whole series of those kinds of things that have the paradox to them, and they speak to your what you do may not have lasting impact, but if you do the next right thing anyway, whether it does or not. So it's an interesting read. The story about how it came about, how he didn't know that Mother Teresa had it on her wall, and how people attributed it to her, and then he found out about it and expanded it into a book.
Thank you, Lou. Oh, by the way, are you the one that told me about Byron Katie's book on the Tao Te Ching? Was it you that mentioned that, I think? Someone did at our meeting. I forget who did. Anyway, her writing on the 78th verse, this is one paragraph I thought that was really good. The master's giving up helping because she knows there is no one to help. And since she loves and understands her own nature, she realizes that in every action she is serving herself and sitting at her own feet. So there's nothing she gives that she doesn't receive in the same motion as the same internal experience. Even when she appears not to give, that is what she is giving. The master's the woman who dented your car, the man who stepped in front of you in line at the supermarket, the old friend who accused you of being selfish and unkind. Do you love the master yet? There's no peace until you do. This is your work, the only work, the work of the master. Craig.
I just thought of something. Maybe not everybody wants my help. Maybe I should stop it. Maybe I'm interfering. It's just clicked. So for the past 54 minutes, it's something I have learned something. Yeah, maybe people don't need my help.
Unsolicited advice, unsolicited opinions. No. But what if somebody wants, like, hey, Craig, how did you deal with that? Yes. That we want.
Thank you, Marla. That's one thing that's changed for me and that I've actually noticed in sobriety is I quit injecting my opinion into every conversation. Unless I thought they really needed it. I'm going to say. I used to think they needed it in every conversation, you know?
I love that it took Craig this long to realize because he has given up helping, his people's greatest help. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
Yeah.
No fairness, it's nearly 10 o'clock at night.
Kate, how did you hear about us, dear? I know where other people came from. I don't know where you came from.
I know Craig. I live about 30 miles away from Craig, and we met through an online recovery group. Would it be a group? Recovery Elevator Cafe, RE. And on that, there was a WhatsApp group called Ditching the Booze, and Craig was the leader of my Ditching the Booze WhatsApp group. I was very, very, very early in recovery, and this guy popped on my phone and he sounded totally normal because obviously he has a Scottish accent, you know, and I was like, oh man, here's somebody I can really relate to. And so I've actually met Craig in person. a couple of times.
So he's a real person, Kate? Because
He's a real person. He's a real person. And I have people all over the world so jealous that I've met Craig. And so I consider Craig a good friend. Here you are, Craig. I'm just going to embarrass you. A good friend.
It takes a lot more, Kate. You're not embarrassing him.
All right.
He's
also, he doesn't realize this, but he is a mentor and he's very wise. He also, needs a little bit of education in gender politics. And, like he was just saying now about, what other people think of me is not my business. I remember him saying that before, and I've taken that on as a motto. Despite everything, he's quite a clever guy. He texted me last week after an AA meeting that we go to together an online one, suggesting that I would be welcome to come along to this. But I've listened to this podcast and I love the wisdom, and it's amazing to put faces to names I've heard speaking. That's how I'm here. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
Don't cut out all the nice things that she said. Just leave them in.
Talking about water, you're in deep water now, Greg.
I'm in deep shit now. Kate, I'll send you that money. I'll send you the money later on. Kate is actually the only person. So I've been on online communities for 5 years. Kate is the only person in any of the online communities that I've actually met in person.
Oh, see, here's that competition thing, and I got you beat because I've met, I don't even know, probably 10 of our fourth dimensioners, maybe.
That's maybe because you live in the same continent as them. I've got
but my continent is bigger than your freaking country. Like my state is probably bigger than your country. So come on. I will win, Craig. I will win.
I have people I've never even met send me pictures of them with Buddy. And you're like,
thank you, guys. Anything else before we close? All right, guys, if there's nothing else, we will see you next week.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.